Our children are unwell. But we can change that in just 10 short minutes. So something that every single person in this room has in common, every single one of us, wherever you come from, we've all been children. And we all know how strange and different that is to being an adult, right? It's a tough time for most people. And if there's one universal truth that my nearly 2 decades as a child clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist have taught me, it's this. When children are well, their communities are well. And the Maasai people of Kenya have a greeting that captures this beautifully. When they return from their epic journeys and their great battles, they don't ask, "How are you?" They ask, "Kassarian Ingera, how are the children?" Because for the Maasai, who are known throughout history, throughout the world, for their strength, their courage, their endurance, at the very heart of their identity is something even more powerful: care and concern for the most vulnerable members of their society, the ones who have the least power, the children. Because for the Maasai, the well-being of their children tells you everything about the well-being of their society and their future. But if we were to ask that question here today, how are the children? How would we answer? Think about the children that you know, your communities. Think about the things you hear on the media, on the news. And please put your hand up if you can honestly answer that you think our children are doing well right now. Children's mental health is in crisis. Children are the least invested group in healthcare. Almost 99% of all venture capitalist investment goes to adult health services, not children. The world is not made for children. But children are not mini adults. Their brains, their identities, their personalities are being formed right here in the here and now. And when children are unwell, they don't simply grow out of it. They become unwell adults. They carry the effects of stress, adversity, disconnection into their adult lives, their relationships, their work. In the UK, the crisis in children and adolescent mental health services is predicted to cost £1 trillion in lost lifetime earnings. Already, here in the UK, every single year across society, poor mental health costs us £300 billion. That is the economic equivalent of a pandemic every single year. But beyond those figures, there's a greater and a deeper truth. Children are the heartbeat of our communities. And when that rhythm falters, everything else weakens with it. So perhaps as we look to our future, we must start to ask this question: how are the children? So I didn't grow up amongst the Maasai, but I grew up as a mixed race, third culture kid in the Middle East in the 80s and the 90s. I was a child of many different cultures and many different countries, but no one single home. But I learned early on that belonging is not tied to your geographical location. It's about who holds you. My roots, they weren't in soil, but in the people that held me. My family, my friends, my teachers, the communities that helped me feel seen. My Nigerian grandmother, who didn't speak a word of English, but would sing along to my pop songs that I used to play to her in the village when we visited every summer. My Welsh nanny, who wrote to me every single month until the day she died. These beautifully penned airmail letters would find me thousands of miles away, anywhere I was in the world. Nigeria, Wales, the Middle East, worlds apart. But there's never really been a place where I've never felt like I'm not at home. And all of these experiences shape the psychologist that I have become. They've helped me to find my inner light so I can shine for others. And my journey in psychology actually started right here in Trafford. Age 21, I got my first ever job as an assistant psychologist just up the road in Flixton in a child and adolescent mental health service. And it was here that I first saw the extraordinary strength and resilience of young people, but also the silent and often invisible struggles that so many families face. And since then, I've worked with children from all walks of life, from inner city estates to people who literally live in castles. Different stories, different lives, different worlds. But one universal truth remains. When their children are well, their families are well, and the communities around them are well. And we see this reflected in science. Children's brains literally develop through their interactions with others. Stress, poverty, violence, adversity, neglect, these things literally change the architecture of the developing brain. But positive, nurturing relationships can help offset the harm. All of those biological systems and neurological systems that underpin pro-social, positive behavior in children, they're strengthened when children feel nurtured, secure, loved. And this is resilience. It's not something that children are born with, but something that grows through their interactions and their experiences with others. And when I work with children and young people who have suffered catastrophic, life-changing injuries, the thing that I always bear in mind is the biggest predictor of their outcome is family functioning. How well their parents are able to positively and consistently be there for their children. And sometimes we call this attunement. The idea that someone can hold you and be truly there and truly present for you. In psychology, we use this concept all the time, but you don't have to be a psychologist to do it. Over 40 years of psychological research teaches something deceptively simple, but super powerful, that I'm going to give to all of you right now as my gift to you. It's called special time. 10 minutes a day, when the child leads and the adult follows, with attention, with warmth, with curiosity, no agenda. And research tells us, decades of research tells us, that this simple daily ritual can strengthen attachment, reduce behavior problems, and even lower stress hormones in children and their caregivers. 10 minutes a day is all it takes to change a life. And sometimes those 10 minutes, they don't have to come from home at all. They can come from a teacher who believes in you, a sports coach who notices your potential, a neighbor who listens to you, a mentor who shows up. Just one positive adult relationship can help buffer the effects of childhood adversity. One person who believes in a child, shows up for them, gives them that attention, can help change that child's development, that child's future, our future. So just for a moment, think back to your own childhoods and think, who was that person who held you? Who was that person who gave you that attention when you needed it, who believed in you? You got them in mind? Think about how they made you feel. Now, think of a young person that you know. Have you got 10 minutes for them? We say it takes a village to raise a child, but perhaps actually what it takes is for that village to keep asking this question and answering with action. Kassarian Ingera, how are the children? Because when we forget about the welfare of our children, we pay for it in future as a society. We pay for it in lost earnings, lost wealth, creative welfare costs, poorer health, lost potential. But when we invest early, the returns are immense. For every £1 spent on early childhood programs, society saves £7 in the future in all of those reduced costs in health and welfare and social justice and criminal justice. That is a 7-fold return on our investment. So looking after children is not just the ethical thing to do, it's really the smart thing to do. Because a society that has forgotten about its children has forgotten about its own future. So, what might it look like if we begin to live our lives by that question? Kassarian Ingera. What if instead of governments and schools measuring society's success by grades and test scores and gross domestic product, what if instead we measured by the well-being of children? How they're doing physically, socially, emotionally. What if every local meeting, every town planning, every family dinner began with that question? How are the children? It would remind us that the health of our society and our communities is not formed in Parliament or on the stock market. It's formed in our homes, in our classrooms, in our playgrounds. And it would remind us that resilience is not something that's inherited. It's something that grows and is cultivated through interactions with others. And it would remind us that we all have a responsibility, whether you're a parent, a family friend, a neighbor, or a policymaker, in ensuring that the well-being of children, their needs are met. Our society will be stronger and better because of it. And the Maasai understood this long before modern psychology. They never measured the success of their society through their conquests. They measured it by the well-being of their most vulnerable and youngest, because they knew that when their children were thriving, their community was thriving. So, perhaps as we look to our future, the question that we need to ask and keep on asking and answering with action, Kassarian Ingera, how are the children? Because until we can answer in the ancient Maasai way, all the children are well, our work is not done. So, when you leave here tonight, maybe tomorrow, sometime soon, speak to a young person that you know and ask them honestly, with attention, how are you doing? And then listen to the answer as if the future depends on it. Because it does. Thank you.